Welcome to the Battle of Homestead's Monday Markers program. This is the program for November the 9th, 2020. We are going to talk about two markers, Mother Jones in Homestead and Fannie Sellins in Arnold, PA. These two heroic women were very active in the 1919 steel strike or leading up to it, and both of them forcefully asserted their civil liberties, their right to speak and assemble and organize without governmental or corporate permission. Mother Jones and Fannie Sellins were lifelong champions of labor, selfless organizers, articulate and heroic women who confronted the overwhelming power of the Carnegie U.S. Steel Corporation in the industrial valleys of western Pennsylvania. In August 1919, one of them was arrested and the other was brutally murdered. Mother Jones was called the Miners' Angel for her vigorous support of miners' strikes, her fierce opposition to child labor, and her consoling presence at mine disasters. A month before the steel strike in August 19 in Homestead, Mother Jones was arrested for addressing a large crowd on 8th Avenue, preparing them for the coming strike. When she was told by the judge that she needed a permit to speak, she famously replied that she indeed had a permit signed by Patrick Henry, Thomas Jefferson, and John Adams. She was jailed nonetheless. The day after Mother Jones' court appearance for unpermitted speech, Fannie Sellins, the articulate female labor organizer, considered by many to be the successor of Mother Jones as the coal miners, one of their major spokespersons and organizers, was murdered in cold blood by corporate thugs with the full complicity of the Allegheny County. Recently, on August 26, 2019, the centenary, 100 people gathered for a three-part commemoration on the centennial of her assassination. The first was a community commemoration in Natrona Heights, where she was killed. The second at the steelworkers local that she was attempting to organize, and the third at a very moving mine worker commemoration in the evening at her grave in Arnold Cemetery. Fannie Sellins had led a year-long strike of garment workers in St. Louis, and after that in 1912, she was hired and brought to western Pennsylvania as a United Mine Worker organizer. She supported union miners and their families during strikes and lockouts, explosions, cave-ins, and joblessness. She described her work as the distribution, quote, of clothing and food to starving women and babies, to assist poverty-stricken mothers and bring children into the world, and to minister to the sick and close the eyes of the dying. Forbidden by court injunction to speak on behalf of striking miners in Collier's, West Virginia, Fannie asserted her American rights and refused to be silenced. She was jailed in 1916 after speaking at a miners' rally, offered her freedom if she promised not to return to Collier's, West Virginia. She replied, "I am free. I have a right to walk or talk any place in this country as long as I obey the law. I've done nothing wrong. The only wrong they can say that I've done is to take shoes to the little children in Collier's who needed shoes. And when I think of their bare little feet with the cruel blast of winter, It makes me determined that if it be wrong to put shoes on those little feet, then I will continue to do wrong as long as I have hands and feet to crawl to colliers. It's significant that the memory of Fannie Sellins and her sacrifice has been preserved from below, from the grassroots, not by academic historians. Her story resides in the memory of the community, in local steelworkers and coal miners. William Z. Foster, who had success in organizing the meatpacking industry and was the steel strike organizer on behalf of the American Federation of Labor, called Fannie Sellins the most effective organizer in the Pittsburgh region. Fannie Sellins was shot and brutally beaten in Natrona Heights when she intervened as a group of coal mine deputies were beating Union miner Joseph Strzelecki to death. Sellins was shot twice in the back and then clubbed. Her head was crushed by a club. Deputies danced over her bodies and celebrated in front of a crowd, but no one was arrested for the murder. Philip Murray, who was in the process as district mine worker organizer in the process of moving Fannie Sellins from his UMW District 5 staff to the American Federation of Labor's steel industry organizing effort when she was murdered. He erected a stunning 12-foot high grave marker for Sellins and Joseph Strzelecki, the mine worker picket, and it depicted a woman leaning in sorrow against a cross with mine worker written poetry and the epitaph, "They fell a victim to the lust of greed, they whose blood ran hot with labor's need, they foully murdered August 28, 1919. On the first anniversary of the death of Fannie Sellins, 10,000 people were in attendance at the dedication of the statue that marked the two graves of Fannie and Joseph Strzelecki.
In labor's glorious history was many a union maid who stood up to the bosses, so staunch and unafraid. Molly Jackson, Mother Jones fought for a better way, but let's sing of Fannie Sellins and remember her today. All over Pennsylvania, Fannie spread the Union word. In the coalfields and the company towns, her voice of hope was heard. United we will bargain, but divided we must beg. Fannie Sellins spread the dreams of the UMWA. A widow with 4 children, toiling 80 hours a week, found time to fight injustice and bring power to the meek. She fought with tireless energy, no duty would she shirk. Though murderers cut short her life, we carry on her work.